JayDreamerZ welcomes you to the live stream.
We know that Titans once existed. We have it written in every one of our cultures, in every one of our stories. We accept in all of our religions that there were giants and that we fought against the giants and that there were wars between the gods and the other gods, the giant races. Now, you'll see a lot of the Titans being portrayed as being made of rock in a lot of our movies. And the reason for that is because they literally turned into rock. Okay, after this cataclysm hit, basically in a nutshell, there were no oceans. The oceans were then introduced, okay? Along with all of that water churning up everything, okay? It created a mud flood. It created a flood of debris that knocked everything down and washed over and coated everything and basically suffocated everything as well. So those things that didn't drown suffocated. Not only do I mean they suffocated from being able to breathe the air, but their skin suffocated from, your skin breathes air, okay? Like you have pores in your skin and, plants and vegetables and fruits, they all do too, There's pores inside of things. Microscopically, there are holes inside of everything. Now, in those holes, the minerals that were in that water went into those holes and just flooded the bodies of these ancient beings with the minerals that were in the water, okay? And then the minerals built up and there are different words for it. You can say they petrified, they calcified, they densified, they silicified, which is a good one because the ancient world was a silica world. Our world today, what we call Earth, is all silica for the most part, okay? It's the second most abundant substance in our world next to like the air we breathe, okay? So anyhow, we understand that these things are true. We don't have to know them. We don't have to talk about them, but subconsciously we know that our world was more of a fantasy world than it is the world that we're presented with today. Let me give you some examples, okay? This is just a few examples. It would help if you could see what I'm looking at. So here are some recent movies that are coming out or have already come out, okay? I had talked about in some prior videos that I predict we're going to see, as we see these revelations come to light, we will see Hollywood mimic these revelations in turn. Now, some of them have already been put out there because one of two things, either Hollywood in general is laughing at us and rubbing the truth in our face, which I don't really lean towards that. I feel like if they're going to hide it, they would try their best to completely hide it. Or the other option is that breadcrumbs are being left to us. They are giving us the information, but they're not bound to give us the information in any particular form or way. They say, here's the information. Do with it what you would like. You are smart enough to make your own decisions and to figure things out in life. Here's the information. Do with it what you will. If you want to sit there and eat popcorn and just have a good time and not think and to be amused and to just say, wow, that was good, or oh, that movie sucked, or whatever, and then just move on to whatever else you're doing in your loop called life, fine, you can do that. Or if you want to have an experience while you're watching these movies or reading these books, and if you want to allow the stories that are being told to touch you and to say, to basically the stories are reaching out from the past and grabbing you and saying something about this holds true. Something about this is real. It has weight to it, right? Anyhow, let's check out another movie. Oh, check this out. We've got Rampage, right? One of my favorite video games when I was a kid. But basically, there's more Titans, okay? Now, yeah, you could say it's a giant monkey, or there's another one that's a giant lizard, and there's a giant something else in here. But they are giant beings. They are titanic beings, the size of skyscrapers. And I think, this one already came out, but King Kong, Skull Island, Godzilla. You could probably think of a lot more as well. And then, most recently, and most interesting, there's this one, which I haven't really talked about. I know a lot of people leave me comments and pictures and stuff. And this is the number one thing on everybody's list. Like, dude, Attack of the Titans, look, like they're talking about it. Yes, absolutely, let's talk about it. The reason I haven't really talked about Attack on Titan is mostly because of how they're portrayed, right? They're just all portrayed as, these evil, ugly, monstrous things to be totally terrified of. Pardon me. And they're also portrayed as something you need to immediately kill. I don't think that's a good mindset for us to have. We're being conditioned to immediately point our guns at the sky when the aliens come and just freaking kill them instantly on sight. What? Why? We're also being trained to immediately just kill the Titans, should they return, or the gods, or whatever they are, anything different, just shoot it and kill it. It's bad guy. But I find this particular genre of the way that they portray the Titans as being very interesting, and it's because of the flesh. It's because of the meaty portion. I ran out of vocabulary. It is because of their muscle tendons, okay, the muscle fibers that they clearly show here on the Titans themselves. Now, do I think that Titans just walked around with no skin, just muscle fiber and muscle tissue? No, I do not. No, I don't. But whenever this cataclysm struck, those beings all died, okay? May have decomposed partially, and they turned into rock at different intervals, at different periods. Now, there's a lot of interesting speculation, and there's a few different theories that I've heard as to how they actually turned into rock. Absolutely, you can turn into rock. Anything can turn into rock if it is de-oxidized, if the oxygen is taken away from it. I don't know if that's the right word, but basically if it's suffocated to an extreme degree, it can turn into rock. And water is a key component to that happening. We know the world was flooded. We know that everything was covered in not just water, but the debris that was introduced when these waters rushed over a world that was already being terraformed by these titanic beings the size of skyscrapers and mountains. And then some people are speculating on some other ideas where they may have just frozen instantly, maybe due to some sort of prehistoric weaponry or pre-advanced type of technology that was used in these ancient wars. Something that we'll get into on another time, not right now. Let's see, what else do we have here? Attack on Titan, that's me, and I'm going to pause that. So yes, anyhow, you can see these things all over the place. This is a pig. This is the flesh of a pig. You never would have guessed that, because if you were that small, this is how the pig flesh would look to you. Imagine what Titan flesh looks like to us. Titan muscles, Titan feet or hands or other body parts that we're seeing all around the world. Titan brain or Titan, whatever it may be. Now, I asked myself, why do we see body parts all over the place, Why don't we just see full intact Titans, just statues, just, you know what I mean? The size of a skyscraper going like, just totally frozen. Well, it makes sense that if they were indeed solidified and turned into rock, that they would also, parts of them would break off. And that's what I'm seeing in my investigations and my research. I'm seeing all of these various body parts all over the place. Now, when you combine that with the torrents and the rushing of worldwide floodwaters in an ocean that never existed before this particular part of time, okay? And that's another thing that blows my mind. We just take the oceans for granted. Those don't belong there, okay? They don't. That is a foot, okay? It's a foot. That's a footprint, and it was depressed and water filled it up. You know what a footprint looks like. So do I. We don't have to be afraid because we're speculating. We don't have to be afraid because we're using our creative mind and going, that's totally what that looks like, okay? It is a time that we're entering into when we can be courageous in discussing these things. I would highly recommend other people, if you find these types of alternative fringe ideas, used to be known as conspiracies. Ooh, conspiracies, right? It's not. It's research. It's looking into things. It's having an open mind. It's being able to balance out what's called fact and your own personal ability to discern what's going on based on your life experience and your knowledge that you've accumulated so far in life. And that's really what I want. I only want to help other people in this particular time to think on their own, to think critically, to be able to have no fear of suggesting ideas or looking into things or doing their own independent research. I encourage other people to think outside of that box, right? You could look at the box as the television, the radio. You could look at the box as the Saturn cube that keeps us in some sort of crazy computer matrix. You can look at the box in all of those ways. But I can tell you this much. This is not the way life was meant to be lived. This is not natural. And when I say this, I don't mean this back here. This is natural, actually. This is very natural. This is more natural than what we're presented with. Yeah, it's a natural rock formation. No, it's nature that turned into a rock formation. So yes, it's very natural. This is evidence of the world that passed us by. This is evidence of a world that once existed that we only write about in fairy tales and fiction and movies and things of that nature. I'm trying to talk about these types of subjects to bring them to light as evident. Not evidence, but they are self-evident. Wind and rain did not create that over millions of years. It doesn't matter what kind of magic you want to throw at it, which it is magic, by the way. When you're taught that in schools, they cast spells. They speak to you in spell form, and they cast a spell over you to have you convinced of what they are instructing you to believe already, right? So, I drew a blank. Anyhow, so yes, the bodies of the Titans, not just the Titans, but ancient technology, ancient animals, ancient life forms, all of the ancient world was a part of this. That's an elephant. I mean, come on. Yes, it is a mountain, but it is an elephant as well. All of that stuff in the ancient world died, it passed away, and it solidified. Now, giants are real. The Titans are real. This one in particular looks like a big old, I don't like to say it looks like, but it does look like sometimes, right? I would hate for these types of things to turn into like cloud spotting, where people are just looking at clouds and like, oh, that one kind of looks like this, but it changes 10 seconds later. These do not change. These are statues. These are evident of what they once were. If we decide to look at them in another way, in another light. And I'll tell you this much, it makes this boring, horrible, evil, messed up, mundane, destroyed desert of a world a little bit more fun. Okay? It really does. It makes it more fun, it makes it more interesting, and believe it or not, you'll start to find some purpose when you look into it a little closer. And the reason for that is because when you understand your past, your present is filled with purpose. Because now you have drive and a purpose and a reason for what's to come. Because you already know what's happened. Now, I want to read to you guys some examples of giants. Okay, you could use giants and titans synonymously, okay? Because they pretty much are. However, in my videos on this channel, I usually differentiate between the two. When I talk about giants, usually those are in reference to those who are blood related or are the gods themselves. The ancient, look, that's a dude. That's a dude right there. You see that arm? You see that like gait? That's a dude. That's a face. Man, like, come on. That's totally a face. Anyway. I totally got off track. I'm sorry. yes, I will differentiate between the giants and the titans, okay? Giants, titans, same type of deal, okay? In our modern society, okay? Because we will easily, in today's world, refer to giants. We find it a little more difficult to refer to the titans because that's just a absurd concept, right? Anyhow, this book right here is called Giants, Legends and Lore of Goliath. Now, I'm not going to read the book or anything, but I do want to read this particular section because this has stories from around the world. I'm so sorry. This has stories from around the world. All you have to do is lift up these little flags and it gives you a little story about a factual account of where people have had encounters with the giants of old. Okay, so I'm going to start with, and shout out to any of you if you're from these places. Island of Tierra del Fuego. Which, interestingly enough, by the way, in the there's this new like flat Earth map or whatever going around, high definition. You can zoom in on it or whatnot. In the actual Tierra del Fuego area, it says "Land of the Giants" in Italian. Okay, it's really interesting. Now, another interesting thing as well, before I start reading this, is that movie Pacific Rim. Why is it called Pacific Rim? I haven't seen the movie, but I can tell you this: what we call the Pacific Rim, that whole edge of the ocean around the Pacific, that's the Pacific Rim. That is the what do you call it? The Ring of Fire, right? There is a reason that movie is called Pacific Rim, and it has something to do with Titans. And Titans destroying a bunch of buildings and stuff like that as well. And it's because the Titans terraformed our world. They dug it out, okay? That's why the oceans are filled with water. Because once the flood was introduced, those areas where the Titans had dug out and terraformed, filled with water. Those areas that they were yet to get to are called our continents. Otherwise, everything would just be ocean.
Too many numbers, how about you? So hard to handle.